This is an extract from the Leader Coronavirus Daily podcast by the Evening Standard and hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for it on your podcast provider. This is SNP MP Margaret Ferrier asking a question over Zoom in the Commons on June the 11th about that time Dominic Cummings needed an eye test at Barnard Castle.
Public health experts have voiced concerns that Dominic Cummings did undermine public trust in lockdown rules, going against the principle of integrity in the Code of Conduct. Will the Cabinet Office conduct an investigation into potential breaches of the Code of Conduct by Mr Cummings? Or have ministers yet again decided that they have had enough of experts?
But now she's the one being investigated by police and the Parliamentary Standards Watchdog. On Monday, suffering symptoms of coronavirus, she gave a speech, this time inside the House of Commons. That evening, she tested positive for the infection. The next day, she got on a train and travelled 500 miles home to Glasgow. Our political reporter Sophia Sleigh is here. Sophia, has Margaret Ferrier given any explanation at all for what she did?
No, we haven't had any sort of explanation why she travelled back home. Obviously she's apologised for it. One can only assume that, I suppose it is a frightening moment and perhaps she wanted to be with her family. Maybe that was the rationale behind it, but we haven't been given, her statement didn't outline why she wanted to go back.
A lot of people have said a lot of things about it. What do we know has actually happened?
She started getting mild symptoms, she described it as, and so she decided, right, I'll take a test. And on Monday, she took a train to Parliament because she said that she'd started feeling better and all this. I guess, she must have assumed that maybe she didn't have symptoms and she didn't have coronavirus, perhaps was, second doubting herself. But anyway, so she travelled down to Parliament, which she shouldn't have done, gave a speech in the Commons during the coronavirus debate. And that very evening that she was speaking, she actually got her result telling her that her coronavirus test was positive. We don't actually know if that was before or after her speech, what the sort of time frame is on that specific part. But then we know the following day she then gets on another train back home to Scotland. The Commons authorities say that it's the Wednesday, the next day after that, is when she informed the SNP that she'd had a test. And then on the Thursday is when she reports herself to the police. That's, and she issues this big statement saying, I'm sorry. And the SNP leader, Ian Blackford, suspends the whip from her. There's a bit of a discrepancy over all of this because the SNP is sort of saying, well, actually, we didn't know until Thursday that she had taken a test before travelling to London. So I think there's a bit of cleaning up that the SNP need to do on this. And now there's, lots of pressure on her to stand down and resign as an MP.
There's that little bit of doubt about when she knew or when she got that positive test. But like you said, she should not have been inside the House of Commons to make the speech that she did. I would expect MPs would be pretty angry that she did that.
Yeah, MPs are pretty fuming, to be honest. Everyone's pretty angry. And actually, it's not just MPs that work in Westminster. You've got loads of catering staff, you've got cleaners, you've got hundreds of people that aren't MPs working there, journalists, MP support staff, everything. So actually, it was a very, very selfish thing to do, putting all those people at risk. I know one person had to self-isolate after this all came out. I believe they've had a negative test. I think they're okay. But that's not the point. She should never have left her home. As soon as she had that suspicion, those symptoms, she should never have ever left home, let alone get on 2 trains and whatever else she did get on, and mixing with lots of people.
Yeah, and that goes to public trust, doesn't it? Because Margaret Ferrier herself criticised Dominic Cummings for his Barnard Castle eye test, and now here's an MP getting on not a short train journey from London to Glasgow. The public must be looking at these sorts of things and thinking, what is going on?
Yeah, I think it's not a good look for the public. It's very much, people I talk to, my friends and family, they say, well, it's that cliche, one rule for them, another for us sort of thing. We had, it was Jeremy Corbyn the other day was pictured at this big dinner party with 9 people. Then Stanley Johnson was out in the newsagents without his mask on. The biggest and most major example of that was the Prime Minister's most senior advisor and his infamous Barnard Castle eye test trip. And it is insulting to the public, I think, this kind of behaviour. MPs, politicians and their advisors are expected to lead by example. You can't ask us to abide by these, at times very, very stringent and quite draconian measures when you don't even do it yourselves. So it is a bit of a slap in the face, particularly to people that have, lost loved ones throughout this crisis. It's about saving lives.
Search for the Leader Coronavirus Daily on any podcast provider to hear more from the podcast.